Welcome to part 15 of You Think That Jesus, whom is God, created all things, and that it is good. And I hope that by now I'm reaching you. This is January the 9th, 2023. And I hope that by now I am reaching you for you to gain understanding and truth that Jesus did not create all things. You've been watching these shorts. If you haven't watched the previous ones before you watch this one, go back and watch the others because you won't understand this at all. This one's very difficult.
Or from a pharmacy.
This is very difficult. Now, getting back into this footage, there's so much more to cover.
The medical office, this week's decision paves the way for women to get a prescription via telehealth and then receive the pills in the mail or from a pharmacy. Still, the fight is far from over. Legal experts predict court battles over access will rage for years.
No.
Jesus said, as a sign of his coming and the end of the age, there would be an increase in deception, false Christs who will deceive many, wars and rumors of wars, nation against nation and kingdom against kingdom, famines, pestilences, earthquakes, Christian persecution, apostasy, false prophets, and lawlessness, causing the love of many to grow cold. Jesus said all these signs would come like birth pains. Jesus was likening last days events to a woman in labor. As the labor progresses, the pains increase in both frequency and intensity until the baby finally comes. As we get closer to Jesus' return, all the signs he gave us as a sign of his coming and the end of the age will become more frequent and more intense. All of these signs are manifesting around the world in our time.
All these signs are manifesting in our time.
Casters describe it, threatens the state.
Now,
Hold on.
Frequent and more intense. All of these signs are manifesting around the world in our time.
Tonight, a state of emergency in California where tens of millions are under flood and wind alerts as yet another major storm, a bomb cyclone, as forecasters describe it, threatens the state.
Now in a state of emergency, this is exactly what California is bracing for. The brunt of a new winter storm forecasted to be potentially more powerful than the system that triggered daring rescues, widespread flooding, and washed out roads.
We need the rain, but we don't need it all at once.
With up to 8 inches of rain possible across.
This rain is not going to end your drought. Don't get too happy. Just so you know, California. No, this rain was meant to bring more destruction of the land and erosion and whatnot, to help weaken the soil. And to fulfill more prophecies. Look at all the sinkholes and things that take place here.
California and 4 feet of.
Do not call this global warming or climate change. Those of you that know the Lord, I recommend you don't do that. Boy, do I recommend you don't do that. Don't you go about with that lie on your lips. You know this is the fervent heat that is spoken about in the Word of God. Don't you go about with them lies on your lips.
No, with 100-mile-an-hour winds in the mountains, a bomb cyclone connected to a strong atmospheric river will wallop the West. Over the next 7 days, 3 separate atmospheric rivers could drop up to 20 inches of rain. A storm system powerful enough to strand drivers, trigger landslides, and swallow roads again.
It was like a full river. You couldn't stand where you're standing right now. It would take you down.
Bracing for an onslaught of wicked weather.
You couldn't stand where you're standing right now. Sounds familiar. Sounds like one of the prophecies. I see a land with much flooding. Where there's no ground thereupon to stand. Yeah, sounds vaguely familiar.
The storm system that did this damage fueled 17 reported tornadoes in states like Arkansas and Alabama. Today, the South still swamped.
The prophecies which I'm speaking about are prophecies from 2017, 2018. They were written in a book and dated. And now they are digital copies only of those. They were consumed by fire, but there was digital copies of most of them, photographs. Getting back into this footage. Do you think about these people who are suffering when you see these things? Do you think about how the land itself is being took a toll on for the sins of man? Do you even really care?
Parts of Kentucky underwater, roads and cars disappearing in Georgia. Back in California, the cleanup from the first storm is still underway, just as the next one barrels down and promises to deliver a devastating blow.
In the book of Job, chapter 37, 5 through...
A devastating blow. Gonna do a devastating blow.
In weather we have been witnessing is clearly punishment.
Turning now to the powerful storm pounding California. It has claimed 2 lives, including a toddler. This is the latest system known as the atmospheric river to sweep across California in recent days. A state of emergency is in effect as crews race to respond to power outages, flooding, and mudslides. Nearly 200,000 homes and businesses are without power.
We're here in the town of Wilton, outside the city of Sacramento, which received the equivalent of 1 month's worth of rainfall in less than 24 hours. The levee system, which was meant to hold back the river, it broke in several locations during last weekend's storm, which is why we're seeing this incredible amount of flooding. The river here, the water here, are expected to rise as the day continues on. Meteorologists describing this storm as brutal and is already proven to be deadly.
The damage has already begun across the Bay Area and Central Coast, and for at least one family overnight, heartbreak.
We had a fatality up there of a minor.
The town of Occidental's fire chief, Ron Lenardi, described the events following a tree falling on the mobile home of a family of 3, killing a toddler.
When I first arrived on scene, a frantic father came out of the house holding the child, and he said, "My child's not breathing."
Lunardi went on to say paramedics were unable to revive the child.
This night also saw rescues across the area, including a crew saving this man from the fast-running Los Gatos Creek in San Jose.
We anticipate that this may be one of the most challenging and impactful series of storms to touch down in California in the last 5 years.
Authorities are warning residents to stay indoors and off the roads unless ordered to evacuate.
They just said that we have to leave.
And for good reason. Following last weekend's storm, late yesterday, we witnessed one man discover his sister's car submerged in a Sacramento County vineyard. He told us he'd been searching for her for the past 3 days. Emergency crews arrived and recovered her body. At least 3 deaths have been linked to the holiday deluge.
With the saturation of the water, it's not going to take much to overwhelm communities.
Jeremiah 18.
Not going to take much to overwhelm communities.
Tonight, it is Europe getting slammed with a record winter heat wave. And we say the word record for a reason.
A winter record heat wave. Seemed like I said that was coming. Because that's what God told me. That's what Jesus himself said. Fulfillment.
And this is really unprecedented. This is what it looked like in Germany on New Year's Day. It hit 60 degrees. That's the country's weather services. It saw temperatures more than 68 in other parts of the country. They haven't seen that before since they started keeping track back in the 1800s. It's not just Germany, by the way.
Across Europe, the traditional sights and sounds of winter, from Christmas markets to New Year's fireworks. But one thing is missing: the cold. From Spain to Denmark to the Czech Republic, unseasonably warm weather means a rare sight. T-shirts in January, and baffled tourists are noticing.
Apparently this morning when I took it's really, really warm.
The heat has shattered thousands of records across the continent. 7 countries seeing record temperatures on New Year's Day. From mid-50 degrees Fahrenheit in Scandinavia to high 60s in parts of Eastern Europe. Normally, those temps would be below freezing. Experts say the increasing frequency of extreme weather is the result of climate change. In Lithuania, the changing climate triggering early winter flooding. The rising...
Exactly what I said not to call this. This is not climate change. This is not global warming. This is Jesus giving you your wake-up call, church. This is Jesus doing these things, whether you like it or not. He doesn't need your permission. He's God, and he'll do as he chooses. He created you, after all, and he can certainly destroy you. Have a look at this. Really look at this good. And see how God himself can destroy man so easily.
Water turning roads into rivers in parts of the country. And in Switzerland, a dismal ski season, brown grass instead of white powder on the slopes. At this resort in the Austrian Alps, they're relying on artificial snow to make up for a shortage of the real thing. It's really weird when you ski down the white slope on the left, and on the right side, it's green, she says. 2023 likely to be one of the warmest years on record, as the planet edges ever closer to the 1.5 degrees of warming, which scientists say will lead to climate disaster. The warm for a shortage of the real thing. It's really weird when you ski down the white slope on the left, and on the right side, it's green, she says. 2023 likely to be one of the warmest years on record, as the...
I can promise you it will indeed. And not only in these areas. Because the Lord is about to turn up the heat like you ain't never seen. Yep, he certainly is. I'll see you in the next part.